Hey everyone, on this lesson we are going to solve the problem 3 on the section on dictionary problems. So this problem 3 says, given an input sequence consisting of a code and a word, if the code is A, then we must increment the frequency of the word that follows, and if the code is F, we must write and display to the standard output, that is the console, the frequency of the word that follows in the part of the sequence that we have read until then. And here we assume, of course, if the word does not exist in the sequence, then its frequency is obviously 0. So what is the input and what is the output of this program? Well, the input is a list of pairs. Each pair is a code and a word. We can have any word in this pair. However, the code always is either A or F. If the code is A, then we need to increase the frequency of the word that follows, and if the code is F, we must display its frequency at this time. So what is the output? Well, the output is the frequencies of the words that will have the code F in front. Let's see one example. We have here this input. Okay, as we can see, this is a list of pairs, code, word. So here, for instance, we start with the word time. The code of this word is A, so we need to increment the frequency of time, so we just do that. Then we have the other word, light, so we increment the frequency of this word. And then we have here the F code with the word speed. So if we have the F code, we need to display the frequency of this word. However, if this frequency was not incremented before, and we didn't have this word in the sequence before, then this frequency is 0. That's why on the output the first thing we see is 0. Then we here have the word time with the code F. So we need to display the frequency of time. As we can see, we have added time only one time, so here we just see that the output is 1. The frequency of the word time is 1. Then we add time, so we increase the frequency 1, we increase the frequency of time again. We now add for the word speed, we increase the frequency of the word speed. Again, we do the same thing. And then here, what do? Well, we do the code F, so we need to display the frequency. And now the word is graph. However, this word did not exist in the sequence before, so the frequency of graph is 0. That's why we see a 0 in here. Then we add the frequency of graph in 1, and then we print now the frequency of the word time. Now this frequency, since we have added 2 times here, apart from the first one, we will have a total frequency of 3. That's why we see here on the output 3, right? And then finally, we have here the code A, so we add 1 frequency to the word lake, and we compute the frequency of the word lake, which is only 1. Yeah, so with this, we can see an example of this program. So what is the idea behind this problem? Well, we are on the section on dictionaries, so we need to implement this problem using a dictionary. So this problem is not complex to see that since we have here a list of pairs. Normally when we have a list of pairs and we're working with dictionaries, then we have an identifier. This is going to be the key of the dictionary, right? And then we have the value. So it is not complex to see here that what we will have is a dictionary where the keys are going to be the words that we have on the sequence and the values, their frequencies, right? So that when we just type the code F with a given word, we just access this key on the dictionary and we compute the value of this key, which is the frequency of this word, right? So this is the idea behind this problem. So let's start solving it now. So we are now in our C++ environment. As usually, we have created a new file. So first of all, let's just include the input and output stream library of C++. And also, since we are going to work with dictionaries, we will use the map library, since we've explained before. We also are going to use a namespace for the std library. And now here, let's define our main program. So, as we've said, what we will have is basically and essentially a dictionary, a map, where the keys are going to be the words, so the key is a string, and the values are going to be integers, which is the frequencies, right? So we have here a pair key, where the key is a string, and then we have the value, which is the frequency, and the data type is an integer. So with this, we can define the dictionary, right? We just come here and say, all right, we will have a map where the key data type is going to be a string value, and as we can see here, the value for the keys of this map is going to be integer. So remember, when you define a map in C++, here we have the key, and here we have the value. So here we need to specify the data type for the keys and the data type for the values. Okay, so here the data type for the keys is a string because the data type is a word, and here we have these integers. So we can also comment here that the map, basically, okay, the keys are going to be the word, or even instead of map, let's just use the name D for dictionary. And once we have this data structure defined, we can start reading from the input the data that we are going to read. This is going to be essentially the code and the words. And depending on the operation that we have, keep in mind that we can have two operations. If we have the code A, then we need to do the operation of incrementing the value in one of that key, of that word. If the operation is F, then we just display. We just display the frequency, which is the actual value of this key in the dictionary. So here, let's just define the operation. It's going to be a character, either A or F. So here, this is the code, either A or F. We are also going to have here a variable word for keep reading words from the input. Okay, this variable is going to be changing in a iterative way at each time that we read a new pair key, which is the word and then the code. So here we are going to do a basic while loop. So while we keep reading from the input the operations, then here we can distinguish the cases. First of all, let's consider the case that we have the code A. So if we have that the code is A, we need to increment the value of the frequency for this word, right? So here, if the operation, if the code that we have is A, so let's just call it operation, then we also read this word, so we read the word, and then once we have the word, we need to find this word in the dictionary, right? Because we have the key, so we find this word in the dictionary. We can use this with an iterator, and then we increment the frequency of this word, which is basically incrementing the value for this word, right? However, we also need to check, and this is important, we need to check if the word is already in the dictionary. So basically, what happens when we first read a new word? This key, this word is not in the dictionary yet, right? It is not on the dictionary. So we need to insert this word in the dictionary with its corresponding value. Since it is the first time that we insert, the frequency is going to be 1, right? However, from now on, if I keep reading this same word, since it is not going to be the first time that I read this word, I don't have to insert again. I just have to increment its value. So we have here two cases when we are incrementing the frequency. The first case is it is the first time that we read this word. The second is when we have already read this word before and we just need to add and we don't need to insert this word. So to do all that, we need to define first of all an iterator to this map. Keep in mind that when you define an iterator, you need to define the same data type as your map. So you just type 2 points iterator. Let's just call it the iterator IT, for instance, right? So with this iterator, now we can find this word in the dictionary. So let's find it. Okay, let's find it. So the iterator is going to be equal to the map, which is the name D, find, and here we type the key. So basically here, this is going to return the iterator that points to this word if the word is in the dictionary. If the word is not in the dictionary, this will return the end iterator. Remember that this returns the end iterator if the word is not on the dictionary. So now we have a way of knowing if the word is already in the dictionary or if the word is not on the dictionary. How? Well, we just check if it is equal to d dot end, like so, this case means that the word was not on the dictionary. So here let's just comment the word not in the dictionary, word not in the dictionary, and we just insert this word with the, which is the dictionary name, insert, and here we make a pair where the first element is the word, is the key, and then the second is the value. So since it is the first time that we're putting this word in the dictionary, its frequency is going to be 1, as we've said before. Now this is the case where the word was not in the dictionary. What if the word is in the dictionary? So we have here the otherwise, the else case, right? So if the word is already in the dictionary, we don't have to insert this word because it is already in the dictionary. So basically this find here will return an iterator that is not the end of the map, but essentially the iterator that points to this element. So we just come here, we say it, which is the iterator, and we increment the value, which is the frequency of this word. So this is going to point to the value, okay, which is the frequency, and we can just increment it like so. So this is, we increment the frequency of the word. So here it is important, basically, that you remember, essentially when you have a map element, we have an element inside this map, we can have an iterator that points to an element, and this iterator, it points to a given element, then the first element on this iterator is going to point to the key, so this points to the key, and then when you here have the second, this points to the value. So here, what do we want to increment? The value, which is the frequency of the word, or we want to increment the word? Well, we want to increment the frequency. We cannot increment a string here, okay? The word is always the same. We only change the frequency, which is the value. In fact, we don't change the value of a given key in a dictionary, right? The keys are the identifier of the elements, and then we have the value associated to these keys. We have here a mapping mechanism. So, if we know that this points to the value, which is here the frequency, if we increment in 1 this value, we increment the frequency in 1, which is precisely what we want to do in this case. So here we have already done the operation when the code is A, so we just increment the frequency. If it is the first time that we find this word, and the word was not in the dictionary before, we insert this word with frequency 1. If the word was already on the dictionary, we just increment its frequency like that. Clear? Now let's study the case where the operation is not A, but the operation F, right? The code is F, so we need to display the actual frequency of the word in the dictionary. So here we can do an else if case. So if the operation is now F, then we need to display it, right? So else if the operation is equal to F now, then after reading the F, we also need to read the word. So we read the word again, and we do the same thing. We find for this word. Let's find this word. So we write the name of the dictionary, which is D, and let's find for the word with the name word. With this, we are finding for this string value here. Okay. Now, if we find this word in the dictionary, so if this word exists in the dictionary, we just print its frequency. Now, if the word does not exist in the dictionary, what do we do? Well, we just print the frequency 0. Obviously, because the frequency of something that does not exist is 0 by definition. So if the word does not exist, basically this iterator is going to point to the end of the dictionary, right? We just print the 0, as we've said. Or here otherwise, basically if the word does exist in the dictionary, we print the value of this key, which is basically the frequency for this word. And we can do that with it that points to this element second. Keep in mind that this will return the frequency of this word. Here, if you just type it first, this will return the name of the word, the string. But we don't want the name, we want the value, the frequency. So we here type second, right? And here finally we do also a line break for merely presentation. So again, this is the case, word not in dictionary. And here, word is in dictionary, right? In the same way here, the word not in dictionary, this is the case, and here the word is in the dictionary, right? You will have this code then to download. You can just test it, and you also have the code commented. Very well, so with this we have this program done. Let's verify that it is working right, so let's just run this program. Here we can just go to debug and start debugging. If you're using another environment, then you just run your program as normally, so let's run it. So to verify that this is working right, let's start by taking this input. So let's copy this input and paste it in the console. So let's see if we have the same output. So we just copy this, we run this program, we go to debug, start debugging. Now as we can see, the program is currently waiting for us to introduce the input. We just introduce it, we press enter, and as we see, we have the same output as in the example. What is the output we shall see? Well, the sequence 01031. So now if we go here, we see the first value is 0, then we have 1, then we have 0, then we have 3, and then we have 1. Just like that, right? You can also try with your own examples on the program. So that let's run again, and let's for instance start with the word paper. So increment the value of paper, we again increment the value of paper. Then we have here, let's just check for the frequency of a word that does not exist. For instance, the word computer. So we just type the frequency of computer. This should be 0. Very well. But if we just type the frequency of paper, it is 2. And if we add paper again 3 times, when we compute the new frequency of paper, it shall be 5, as we can see, right? So this is working right. Very well. So with this, we end the solution to this problem 3. We remind the student that you can download this solution as well as the problem statement on the downloadable documents of this lesson.